Welcome to the second episode of Tar Heel History. We're today going to show you some more things about Tar Heel history. And we're going to start out. I told you in the first episode how this goes back not just to North Carolina, but Genesis in the Bible, 6:14. For Noah was building an ark, God told him to pitch it within and without with pitch. Now, a second place I wanted to show you in Exodus 2, verse 3, and we're talking about Moses here. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, daubed it with slime and with pitch. So here's a second place in the beginning of the Bible that they're mentioning pitch. So what we're doing goes way back, okay? Next place we're going to go to is 1584. In 1584, Sir Walter Raleigh's men were here on the East Coast exploring and finding out what was here. But before that, the Native Americans were here, and basically we know for a fact that they would have found this lightwood we're talking about and used it in building their fires to cook with, heat with, and we'll go into some more of that out there in just a moment. But in 1584, Philip Amadas, A-M-A-D-A-S, and Arthur Barlow, B-A-R-L-O-W, were two of Sir Walter Raleigh's men that were exploring here and sent word back to him that the entire coast of the Carolinas was covered in the type tree you make pitch from. Now, to us, that doesn't mean a whole lot, okay, in this day and time. But if I told you that I was exploring over here and I found out that the entire coast of the Carolinas was covered in oil wells, that's what it meant to England. England was building ships every single day. They were trying to conquer the world. They had a huge trading business. They were at war with basically everybody. And so shipbuilding was huge. They had to have these vessels to go around the world to do the things they were doing. And so to build ships, you have to have tar, you have to have pitch, and some type of turpentine, okay, to mix with paints and thin down tar for like selling sails. And so next place we're going to walk out here back, and I'm going to show you some more things that have to do with tar, pitch, turpentine. Okay. We had a rough storm yesterday afternoon with wind, rain, and hail, and it blew off a lot of these male parts from a loblolly. And right now, these are what are putting off the pollen that's covering your vehicle. And of course, this powder will go to a cone, and that cone opens up, receives the powder. 20 months later, it'll open back up next fall in October, November, and drop seed out of the cone that'll come down, land in the dirt, and grow a new pine tree. But these are the male parts of the pine, and most all the pine trees are male and female, have both male parts and female cones. Okay, this is a turpentine face, which is entirely different than what we're fixing to talk about with tar and pitch. This is a living tree, and you can see where that oleo resin has come out of the tree as we streaked it, worked it with a tool every week, and has soaked in to this outside wood, turning it to lightwood, fat lighter. Like I said, it's a natural defense system for the tree. So basically, when you cut this tree, this resin, those tubes are severed, and that resin will run down here soak in that wood and turn it hard as a brick, okay? And beetles couldn't penetrate it. So the tree defending itself is where we get the resin to make the turpentine, which we'll do later in this series. But right now, I just wanted you to see this, and that's the bark, and up underneath the bark is that layer of sapwood that takes the water up. And if you did this all the way around the tree, you would kill the tree because it couldn't carry the water up the tree, okay? But on one side, and then later on I'll show you how they would skip a place and do another face as long as they left that much bark and wood underneath the bark. It would feed the tree limbs and leaves and keep the tree living. Now we've been working this tree about 4 years, and you can see it's not by any means dead. So it hasn't hurt the tree, okay? Okay, and like I told you in the first episode, they named the loblolly after a stew they ate on the ships in the early days. And if you look behind me, you see this swampy, wet, nasty ground. That looked, they claimed, like the stew that they ate on the ships. And so when they found those loblolly pines growing in these areas, they called it loblolly. So that's where the name loblolly originated. Okay, longleaf, and these are loblolly, but longleaf pines survived and went over 90 million acres because of forest fires. Today we suppress forest fires, which is harmful to the longleaf spreading because it needed a clean ground. It hates competition, and for the seed to fall out of the cone, they need to hit dirt in order to stand up and put down roots and grow a new tree. So forest fires before we came here were, you know, everywhere all the time. Lightning would strike something, you would get a fire, it would clean sweep the ground, kill all this undergrowth, all this brush in here, all these no count trees to longleaf, and leave longleaf forest wide open, which then would grow grasses because the ground was clear of leaves and debris. The grass could grow, and that would actually feed the animals. So the Native Americans would hunt in these longleaf pine forests where the animals would gather during the day to eat the grass that was growing under the longleaf pine trees. Now, loblolly this is loblolly, but loblolly and longleaf have extremely thick bark. So fire doesn't damage the longleaf trees. And those long leaves they have on the small ones, that is a fire preventative also, so the fires could come through and it would burn right up to the tree, but it wouldn't harm these trees. It would just clean the ground clear of everything except dirt. Then in the fall, when those seeds would fall out, they would hit dirt and be able to put down roots. When you have stuff like this everywhere, those seeds lay on top of it, and they were great food for rats, squirrels, you name it. Anything that eats that type of thing would come through the forest, eat up all the seed, and so hinder the longleaf reproducing, okay? But forest fires, before we started stopping forest fires, in the early days before we came here, our ancestors, they basically helped this tree go to 90 million acres from Virginia to Texas. And it was said back then that a squirrel could climb in a longleaf pine in Virginia and never come down out of them until he got to Texas, and he would absolutely never touch the ground. So that's, forest fires were good. What you're looking at here is a pile of dead longleaf pine tree hearts that were in the forest. This is what they were looking for when they came over here in 1584. When they were traveling all over these woods, they were seeing this, and they knew that these dead tree hearts contain that oleo resin which was used to produce the tar and pitch to build the ships. So as they were traveling this 90 million acres of longleaf pine forest, they were excited that all these resources were here, because in the beginning, before 1700, England was buying all their products from Sweden, and they had similar trees over there that were producing these products. Now, in 1584, they discovered, they didn't come over here yet, but they discovered that the whole coast of the Carolinas were covered in the type tree you make pitch from. As they die, fall to the ground, that sapwood rots away, the bugs eat it, and it leaves the tree hearts like you see right here. So this is what we're going to be talking about when we're talking about them coming over here, harvesting this off the ground and producing tar in mounds, okay? Now, all right, check down and come this way. These tree hearts are solid. Like I told you, that resin turns them like bricks. And basically these are where limbs were on the trees. It formed a knot that we call a lightered knot that you never want to try to split, because you can't, okay? That's like trying to bust a lightered knot. That shows you how tough this lightwood is that come out of that tree heart. Okay, we'll show you what tar looks like. Now this resin inside this dead wood, when you heat this wood, that resin will liquefy, the pores open in the wood, and the resin runs out of the wood when you apply heat to it. Now this is tar, okay? Tar is the product that was used to make rope. They used it on the ropes on the ships. They used it anywhere on their jackets, their hats, whatever, to make them waterproof. And this is a liquid product when it comes out of the mound. As you can see, that's liquid, okay? When you cook tar down far enough, it turns to pitch. Pitch, when you take this and cook half the moisture off of it, and it turns to this color and this consistency when it cools off. This is what was used in the sides of the ship when they were caulking the ship between the boards, okay? Pitch, tar. Tar is the liquid that comes out of the mound, as you can see right there, okay? What we're going to do is cook this down to half its weight, and it makes pitch, and it's a liquid while it's hot, and as soon as it cools off, it turns to a solid. And they would dip their fence post in it when they were making it, like we've done here, and that was our first wood treatment. You can see right here, you see these little dots of resin. Just the heat of the sun on these tree hearts will cause the pores to open, and there'll be little places of resin running out of them in the summertime. And it'll run down the log a lot of times, and we've got some even on our porch that came. This is a tree heart, or tree root is what this is. This is what we call a lightered knot. See, it looks almost like a wasp nest or whatever. That's where a tree limb was growing, broke, the resin filled the area and left a knot. These are very, very hard to split. You see that liquid on that? That is the resin. I just lit it. That resin has come forth. Now, you Native Americans knew what we knew, and when they were outside, I'm sure, with this fat lightwood, you can see that tar burning, okay? That tar in that wood, that resin is what makes fat lighters work in a fire. So you're gonna put that down in there, and then as it catches this other light with a fire, this would have been how they would have started their fires in the home. How Native Americans, anybody that was going to build a fire, would use this lightwood tree heart because of that resin. It's very flammable. So you're going to stack up your wood, and then you're going to start you a little fire under there with the resin in this wood, and then go to smaller limbs and then larger limbs, and then you're going to end up stacking your wood on there and starting your fire.